Hello and welcome to Stretford Paddock. My name is Joe and this is a one-on-one interview with La Liga TV presenter Semra Hunter. Semra, how are you doing?
I'm doing very well, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing very well after Monday and the Casemiro being announced and United beating Liverpool. It seems like some reason to be optimistic as a United fan for the first time in a while. What I'd like to do is sort of go through this sort of signing of Manchester United, acquiring Casemiro, what you know about the player, what he can bring to Manchester United, because you're someone that's been watching him a lot closer than we have over the last few years. You know more about him than we do. So basically, what is going on with Casemiro? The first question will be, there's a lot of talk about his age, and he's 30 years old. The talk is, has he come for the money, or is this he believes in this role that he can get at Manchester United? He believes he can take his career on another level. What do you think his motivation for this move was? Do you think it was just money, or do you think he sees an opportunity at United that he maybe didn't quite have at Madrid?
I think there's probably a little bit of everything. At the end of the day, none of us are inside of his head, and we have to believe what he says, and we can either take it for face value or take it at face value or not. He said that he wanted a new challenge, that he felt that he had done enough, that he had accomplished everything that he wanted to accomplish at Real Madrid. He was there for 8 seasons. In total, because he had come in 2013, but he also went away to Porto for a year and then came back. So you have to remember, he's won 18 different trophies with Real Madrid. He's won 5 Champions Leagues with one of the most successful teams in Real Madrid's history. And so maybe he does really feel like, you know what, I kind of have achieved everything that I can possibly win. I've won all different competitions. So maybe this really is, and let's be honest, it is a huge challenge going to Manchester United right now. And so perhaps he is tempted by that. Whether money is a factor, I'm sure it probably is. At the end of the day, he, like anybody else, wants to make money for the future, for the family. And if he feels like that's a really good opportunity that he can take advantage of, then why not? So I don't think it's necessarily one thing or another. I'm sure it is a mixture of a lot of different things. And at the end of the day, Manchester United is a massive club. So I'm sure there is the allure of going to play there, to play in the Premier League, to maybe be a huge part of getting Manchester United back on track, actually vying for the Premier League title and actually vying for European silverware as well. So I would say it's got to be at least a mixture of those things, perhaps something else as well. Who knows?
Yeah. You talked there about coming to Manchester United, trying to get us back to the point where we are challenging for Premier Leagues and European silverware. How highly do you rate Casemiro? You've seen a lot of him. How good do you think he can be for Manchester United?
Now, you mentioned the age thing. I'm going to start there because it kind of drives me up a wall, and I think it's a load of nonsense. And I don't know why the English media is so hell-bent on going on about how he's 30 years old. Okay, modern football, especially at the elite level, is operating a level that we've never seen before in terms of nutritional science, in terms of sports science, in terms of nutrition, the way that they're treated, the way that they're trained. Every single second of every single day that they're training is measured. And so 30 is like the new 25 for an elite footballer. Do you know what I mean? The life expectancy of a footballer is getting longer and longer, and it's extending. Look at Luka Modric. He's a perfect example. He's going to be 37 in 2 weeks, and he's one of the best footballers on the planet right now. So for me, age is not a factor, and it's something that just tells me that people are not paying attention, that they haven't been watching him, or they haven't been watching Real Madrid with a regular basis, because that is not an argument for me personally, because he's a fabulous footballer and he's one of the very best, if not the best, number 6s right now in the world, I would say. And he's a phenomenal player that will add a lot to your team, and it's very much a huge loss for Real Madrid, a huge loss for La Liga, but it's very much Manchester United's gain. Is he going to be the one player to fix all the problems? No, but he's a step in the right direction. And I think what he will bring is expertise, leadership, and somebody who can very much help stabilize the defense. Okay, he's like a destroyer, if you want to call him like that. His main aim is to go out, to make tackles, to make recoveries, interceptions, to break up attacking phases of play from the opposition, to basically be a nuisance and to not let anybody get past him to get anywhere close to his own goal. And he's exceptionally good at that. So I think in the Champions League, he was number 1 in recoveries last season, and he was second in tackles attempted. And in Liga, I think he was also number one in ball recoveries as well. And he, by his own admission in an interview a while ago, said that he's like kind of a bit of a nerd, that after games, the first thing he loves to do is to go see how many tackles and recoveries that he made, apart from other things that he likes to do. So he's motivated by those kinds of things. And he's a very physical player as well. He has no qualms about getting involved with the tackle. And he's a lot of times really gotten off scot-free. He should have been gotten a lot more cards or sent off a lot more than he actually did. He only picked up 2 red cards in, I think, a decade over here in Spain in 336 games or something like that. So he's very, very fortunate that he's very intelligent about how he makes those tackles. Apart from that, he has very good spatial awareness. He knows how to read defensively the game incredibly well. He's very smart about knowing how to position himself in the right place at the right time. And he can also tee up, or I should say partner up rather, with those around him if they need a little bit of help. And the main thing that you're going to get from him is that he's not there to set the tempo, to control possession, to be a playmaker, to help with creative build-up. That's not his role. He had Toni Kroos and Luka Modric for that. So it was about getting the ball back as quickly as possible and then giving it off to one of those two. So even though he had a really high percentage of passing, a really high pass rate, how am I trying to say this? Even though his pass completion rate was very high, there we go. It was because usually they were relatively, let's say, simple passes because he was just trying to get it off to somebody else who was a little bit more creative on the ball. And so that's what you're going to get from him pretty much. And I think by virtue of him being so confident in that role, it's going to help everybody else around him start to feel more confident in themselves and knowing that they can focus on their own strengths. And so he's like a silent leader type. You know, you have Cristiano Ronaldo, obviously, who's been there, and who knows what's going on with him right now, whether he's staying or going. You have Harry Maguire, whose confidence has been absolutely shattered. Obviously, he didn't play the other day, so his leadership skills maybe are a little bit falling by the wayside right now. He's not going to wear the armband, obviously, but he is somebody who's going to be probably one of the most important players in the squad at present. He obviously worked with Varane, he played with Varane for a long time, so there's that understanding as well. And hopefully for Varane's sake, he will be able to stay fit for the season, because I don't think you've gotten the best or even seen the best of what he's capable of doing because of the issues that he had last campaign. But I think he's a superb signing. I have to be really honest with you. And I'm really sad that he's leaving Real Madrid.
Can I just say, that answer there is exactly everything I wanted to hear about Casemiro. His leadership, he's not in decline, his mentality, you know, the fact that he's studying and he's, like you said, he's a bit of a nerd, he's looking back and he wants to be the best, he wants the most tackles, interceptions, ball recoveries. That is exactly what I wanted you to tell me. So I'm so happy to hear all of those things about him.
I mean, tell me if I'm wrong here, but like my feeling is that since the days of Michael Carrick, you really haven't been able to find a suitable replacement, which has been quite some time. So
yeah, exactly.
I think you guys are in very good hands in that role.
Yeah,
definitely.
And I think
you could have Christensen, you could have Bruno Fernandes playing alongside him. The only thing is, I guess this would be the next question. So maybe I'll wait and see what you ask. But I assume you're going to ask me how he fits into the team, right?
I was going to ask how he fits into the team. But yeah, just that point there, like you said, about the confidence that he gives the players around him. I think it's so hard to underestimate that. People are so busy looking at stats and, you know, Bruno Fernandes's goals and Casemiro's tackles and this and that. But there is no stat for how confident you make your teammates. There is no stat for, you know, just the ease at which your teammates can play their own game because of the work you do behind them. And if he's great at that, I think that's something that's absolutely massive. I was just about to ask you.
He's a shield.
Yeah, I was just about to ask you. I don't know if you predicted this. How do you think he fits in at Manchester United?
I would say the interesting thing, because obviously these are two very different questions, right? One is the profile of player that you're getting. And the other thing is, okay, how does it actually work? How does it get implemented with the style of play that Ten Hag wants to implement, right? Okay, so we saw 4-2-3-1 the other day. And obviously right now you have that double pivot with Tomine and Fred, right? And I think we all know, I'm sorry to say for them, that they're just not up to the standard of what Manchester United need in those positions. The thing is, Casemiro really thrives in a 4-3-3 as the holding pivot, as the only pivot, the holding midfielder, sorry. And he works really well in that kind of situation. Like I was saying before, when you have a Toni Kroos or Luka Modric who can be the ones to go forward and help with the build-up play. Although I will say this, by the way, Casemiro, when he wants to, he can be box to box, and he actually does have goals in his locker. And 2 seasons ago, he was the second top scorer for Real Madrid with 6 goals, which is it's a bit wild because you're thinking, well, okay, it's not that lot, but for a defensive midfielder, it's actually a huge return. So he's not afraid to go forward and say to the other two, hang back, I'm going to go up to the edge of the box and see what I can come up with. And he's also very good aerially. I think he won 62 out of 99 duels from set pieces. So he can offer a lot in those areas, which I think is something that Manchester United could really improve upon, if I'm not mistaken. So I think it all comes down to what system Ten Hag wants to use. Is he going to change the system to fit Casemiro? Because for me, he walks in, he starts automatically. But the question is he play in a double pivot, or is he going to play on his own?
Well, what we saw against Liverpool was it was McTominay sort of at the base of the three with Eriksen and Bruno Fernandes next to him, which was almost one of the first times we've seen a very, two attacking number 8s next to a single number 6. And I wonder if that was with Casemiro in mind moving forward, because you obviously the quality isn't the same level. Modric and Kroos are 2 of the best ever, but you could try to put Eriksen and Bruno in that Casemiro and Kroos and Modric roles, couldn't you? Maybe.
Exactly. I mean, that's honestly, from the outside looking in, I would say that would be the best fit with the players that you have right now.
Great.
I don't know if anybody else is going to come into the side by the end of the transfer window, but I think that could be a really good option, is to do that. Have Eriksen and Bruno Fernandes as those 8s, and then have Casemiro on his own, just basically manning the ship at the back. We'll see, though. We'll see. It'll be really interesting to see what Ten Hag does. But you're right. I mean, the changes that he made against Liverpool obviously were needed. And that was, I think, pretty evident based on the way that they played and how well that they played. But also they played with more intensity and more fervor. And that's something that's been lacking, the overall attitude in general. And he will help you bring that. Definitely. Right. He will walk in there hungry for change. And he's a very likable character, by the way, in the dressing room. Outside of, what you see on the pitch is very different to who he is off the pitch. So on the pitch, you can see that he's quite a presence, and he can be quite aggressive. And like I said, he has no qualms about having a rough and tumble, moment with somebody if he's going in for a tackle or whatever. But off the pitch, he's actually quite timid, quite shy. I don't know if you saw his farewell at Real Madrid, but that's pretty much who he is and how he is. I mean, I was at the club years ago when he had just come to the club. And he was very quiet, soft-spoken, very friendly, very kind of bubbly character. And I don't think that's changed too much. And you never, ever heard anything about his private life over here. There was never any sort of controversy. He was always flying under the radar. And I think that is a good fit as well for what Manchester United need right now. Players who kind of just stay out of the media, stay out of the news, just go do their job, keep their head down, and carry on, basically.
That's exactly what we need. Someone that does their job very well, and that's all you hear from them. You just hear how good of a footballer he is and nothing else. I think that's exactly what we need. Just a final point, you kind of mentioned it before, but his positioning, in terms of, obviously he plays just in front of the defence and, behind the number 8s, but in terms of his positional awareness, how would you rate that? Because I think that's one thing that almost at times we've had to have Fred and McTominay so that one of them would be in the right position. I think we've lacked players. Nemanja Matic had that, but he didn't have the legs to sort of keep up with the game week in, week out. How good is that positioning in there? Because I think that's such a crucial thing that, again, it's hard to draw a stat of was he in the right position. It's either tackle made or tackle missed. But if you're in the right position, maybe you could have intercepted the ball instead of tackling someone in the first place, like Michael Carrick, as you mentioned there. What is he like in that regard?
So that goes back to the point that I was telling you about his intelligence, about how he reads the game, because he is somebody who knows where to be at the right time based on what he's obviously seeing in front of him. And so you'll see him, he's all over the place. His work rate is sensational. He runs a lot whenever he has to, whenever it's necessary. And like I said before, like if another player needs a little bit of help, then he's there by his side to make sure that he does get that support. So I would say he's probably better alone than having those two on the pitch. if I'm completely
That is
honest with
maybe
you. You can probably do the job of both.
maybe
of
the
them
most damning
just
thing
fine.
anyone has said about Freddie McTominay, and it was almost a sort of quip at the end
God,
of the
please don't let them see this.
They won't, don't worry. They might. Let's move on a little bit then. So obviously,
Yeah, they might, and then I'll become public enemy number one for them. Sorry.
That's okay. Casemiro can do the job of two players. That's what we've learned there, and that's the nice way of saying it. So I'm absolutely thrilled at all the compliments of positivity around Casemiro, especially from you. Obviously, you've seen a lot more of him than I have, or than a lot of people that watch the channel have. What would you say a downside or a negative to his game is? Because obviously, there sounds like there's tons of positives, but is there something you'd say, just keep an eye on this?
I think let's put it this way. His so-called weaknesses, the fact that he's not technically good on the ball when it comes to, holding it or trying to do some fancy footwork or trying to help with the creation or build-up or any of those kinds of things or making more risky passes. The thing is, he was never asked to do any of that anyway. No. So he could really just focus on what he excelled at. So now it will be interesting because I think Ten Hag, and maybe I'm wrong about this, but I think he would like to have kind of like a deep line playmaker. And that's not really Casemiro per se. Right. So maybe he does have a double pivot, but he has Casemiro as the more defensive-minded one, and then he has somebody alongside him who can be a little bit more of the offensive-minded one and find that kind of balance. Somebody who can kind of pick up the slack in the areas where Casemiro is not as good as somebody else, for example. So I think that will be interesting to see kind of what is asked of him, what is required of him, if he's allowed to just focus on what he does best, or if he does kind of have to develop his game in another way that is more suitable to the style of play that Ten Hag wants. So that would be the one thing I would say off the top of my head.
Okay, great. So it's almost like if you put him in the right system, he just is, like you said, one of the best in the world at doing what he does, and it's just whether he gets played the right way. Well, that's about as good a weakness as you can have, isn't it? That your only weakness is if someone else does the wrong thing with you. Let's move on a little bit and talk about Frenkie de Jong quickly, because this is, Casemiro seemed to happen in 2 days almost. The deal was done.
Out of nowhere.
And then the opposite of out of nowhere would be the United's approach for Frenkie de Jong, which has been going on since before the transfer window even opened. There was this whole thing about, does he want to stay? Does he want to go? Does he want to go to Chelsea? The wages were a big deal. There's still some reports going on that whilst United obviously assume that the de Jong deal is probably off now, that if there was to be a suggestion that he might leave, that United could still be in for him. What's your sort of understanding of the de Jong situation at the moment? Because it's a very complicated one, if nothing else.
It is extremely complicated, but I'll try to keep it short and simple. At the beginning of the summer, I said that he wasn't going to leave, and I'm not going to change my tune because I still think he's not going to leave to go to United. Right. Is he going to leave? That is a much bigger question. I think he doesn't want to leave. He's made it pretty evident that he wants to stay in Barcelona, that he's happy, that he wants to earn his place. And the club, however, despite public appearances and things that they're saying to the media, they really want to get him off the books. And so it's a question of finding a place that he would maybe say yes to, because I don't think they can just force him out. So in the Spanish media, they've been talking about Bayern Munich as a possibility to go on a loan deal, for example. I think everyone's kind of given up on the Manchester United thing because he made it very clear that he didn't want to go there. And I think the club are doing all that they possibly can in the remaining days of the window to get him out. But if he can stand his ground, then personally, I think he's not going to leave. Right. I think he'll stay because he wants to. So something would have to happen. Again, I don't even know if it's legally possible for the club to do that, because the Players Federation has been watching very closely this whole situation and how it's being handled, because there are laws in place that say you can't basically force somebody to go against their will. So I would say all bets are off when it comes to United. I wouldn't count on that.
See, the Casemiro answer was exactly what I wanted to hear, and that wasn't quite. I wanted you to say, you know what, we're still going to sign him. But all right, I'll take 1 out of 2. Isn't too bad. Just a final question about Alexander Isak, who looks, as of today, like he's about to join Newcastle. €70 million is the fee that's been seemingly discussed or agreed. He's someone that was kind of linked with United earlier on in the season as a possible, in the transfer window, as a possible replacement for Ronaldo. How highly do you rate him? Do you think that's a good signing for Newcastle? And was he someone that you think United should have maybe done a bit more to try and sign?
I think it depends on whether they want, or if United want a player that was ready-made or somebody that's still in a development phase. Okay. And Alexander Isak is still very young. And for me, he's still in that development phase. I think he's 21, if I'm not mistaken. And while I think he's very good, I think he'll be, if he continues on this path of progression, he'll be one of the very best in Europe, probably in the next few years. He's not exactly a traditional number 9 in the sense that he's not just kind of like a fox in the box hanging around waiting to get service. He's very mobile. He likes to move around quite a lot. He likes to get involved in the build-up. He can also come out wide and then come inside and try to basically get defenses off the scent. He's a very good goal scorer whenever he's on his game. He had a bit of a downturn last season. I think there was a lot going on with rumors that he would leave in the winter window, and it kind of put him off his game. He wasn't quite at the level that we saw from him the season prior, where he was really enjoying a prolific period. Last season, he was very off color for him. So he started out well this time around. He got a good goal against Barcelona the other day. Certainly one to keep an eye on now that he does end up going to the Premier League. Again, whether he would have been a good fit for United or not depends on what kind of profile they were after. I do think it's a good fit for Newcastle. As far as I understand, that's kind of what they're after. And I think he can help with the goal-scoring department.
Interesting, right? Yeah, I think it seems like United are still after a new striker. Obviously, it doesn't look like it's going to be Alexander Isak now. That's all. I've quizzed you enough about Casemiro. We found out how he's going to fit into Manchester United. Thank you so much for coming on once again to the channel. Always bring your expertise around La Liga. And thank you again for saying how good Casemiro is going to be for Man United, because that's exactly what I wanted to hear. So, Semra, cheers for coming on. Thank you.
God, I hope it doesn't backfire now that I've...
And if it does, we'll get you back on and you'll have to explain yourself.
Ten Hag, use him properly, please. That's all I have to say.
Thank you very much. Thanks for joining us. Hit subscribe if you haven't already. Make sure you hit the notification bell as well so you see every single time we go live. Thank you very much for joining us, and we'll see you in a bit.